My name is Shirley Weir. I am the founder of Menopause Chicks and the Nest community, and a women's health advocate, and especially an advocate for sleep and solving for sleep and making sure that you have a full, clear picture of everything that is on the menu for prioritizing your sleep, for solving for sleep, and for understanding the definition of insomnia and what all of the approved treatments available to you are. So that is the agenda for tonight. But I'm starting with this picture for a couple of reasons. One is it's 25 years old this week. Two is it's one of my favorite pictures of my mom and I. And it's not the last picture that I have of the two of us together, but it's certainly my favorite. And I refer to it every March, not just because of the anniversary, but because I'm usually doing education in March because World Sleep Day is this month around sleep and insomnia awareness. And it always reminds me of what my sister and I grew up hearing over and over again from our mom, which was, Shirley, sleep is the best medicine. No matter what it was, my mom thought that we could solve it with sleep. And well, I'm kind of like really, really, not kind of, I'm really, really happy to say that it did take me a long time to realize that she was right, but I'm really happy to say that she was absolutely right. So let's get started. This is Sleep is the Best Medicine 2025. I could not do this work without you. So thank you so much for carving time out of your day. I know you have a lot of competition for where you spend your time today, whether you're joining us live or watching the replay. This is important information for your health, for your current quality of life, as well as for the next 3 to 5 decades. So here's the thing, folks. Most of us are sleep deprived. Sleep deprivation may have even gotten me this job. I started Menopause Chicks nearly 13 years ago, and one of the experiences that I was having that I'd never had before in my life was changes to sleep and sleep deprivation. As I mentioned, this is our agenda for tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of content, but my intention is that you can walk away today with the information and quality education that you need to invite support for your sleep and to feel more confident making the health decisions that are right for you. So we're going to talk about prioritizing sleep, especially and what starts in our middle years for the rest of our life. I'm going to give you some highlights from the most recent Menopause Chicks sleep survey. We're going to talk about solving for sleep. And some of you may know this already. I refer to the pyramid that's on page 25 of my book, Feel Amazing, but we're going to go through it with a different lens. The lens is going to be when we are solving for sleep and introduce or make sure that everyone is really clear on what the definition is of insomnia. I wasn't. About 5 years ago, I did not know. I thought insomnia was this something that was like, whoa, far off, that can't be me, right? And then it was only through my own education and learning and kind of holding up a rear view mirror to my previous experiences where I was like, wow, I was experiencing insomnia. So we'll talk about that in the middle. And then I want to introduce and make sure that everyone is up to speed on what the approved treatments are for insomnia. And then if you like, as I was saying off the top, I would like to support you in any way I can in preparing for your next health appointment so that you can walk in there with the information and education that is current and up to date, as well as the confidence to ask for the support that you need and make the health decisions that are right for you. So why a pot? Well, it's actually the burner that I want you to pay attention to here. Where is your sleep right now? If you were to plot it on this scale of it's on the back burner, it never gets much attention, it's simmering, but I don't ever prioritize it, or is it on the front burner, which means it's at a full boil, it's hot, it's a priority, it is something that needs attention today. So pop into the chat and let me know, is your sleep right now on the back burner or is it on the front burner? I'm going to walk you through the most recent highlights or the most recent survey results that survey that was conducted just last fall with the Menopause Chicks community. It's the second time I have done this piece of research, and I even have a couple of highlights to show you how the statistics or the responses have changed. Now, I don't have all the slides here because we have a lot of content to cover tonight, but I wanted to share with you this question for sure, which is, do you ever experience poor sleep? And the responses, and I want you to focus in on that 3 or more times a week, and you will find out why in just a couple of minutes. 3 or 4 more times a week is 43.5% of us. And this is women aged 45 to 64 are experiencing poor sleep. But look at the daily number. We need to add that in there because that would be 3 or more times per week as well. And then the 1 to 2 times a week, few times a month, few times a year are the lower numbers on this response. Now, what happened in terms of how did this change over the last 2 to 3 years? That 3 or 4 more times a week bar doubled in size. When I did this survey 3 years ago, it was at 26, I think, percent, and now it's at 43. It means we have more work to do in this area, and that's why I'm so glad that you're here. This is now the definition of insomnia time, and this is really important. You notice how I broke up the time spans of how often we experience poor sleep on the first question. Now I want you to hone in on the fact that insomnia is defined as any time we have difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, waking too early, or difficulty functioning the next day after poor sleep. Anytime that happens 3 or more times per week. Okay, now focus on the results and especially the yellow bars. Yellow bars represent 3 or more times per week. These 4 categories all went up over the last 3 years. Difficulty falling asleep, 28%, difficulty staying asleep, 64.4%, waking too early, 49%, and difficulty functioning the next day, 31.6%. Another question that we asked was, how has insomnia impacted your day-to-day life? Or another way that the sleep specialists talk about this is, what are the daytime consequences of you living with poor sleep or insomnia? And the chart was a little bit busy, so I included this listing for you. Look at the red arrows. Engaging in physical exercise is impacted by insomnia, 66% of us. Cognitive function impacted by insomnia, 84% of us. Mood changes impacted by insomnia, 76%. And energy level, daytime consequences, energy level, 92.2%. I said I was excited about today's event, and I am in terms of sharing the information, but this is a crisis. And it's a crisis that's happening primarily to women And the majority of those women are aged 45 to 64. This I found super interesting and I wanted to share it with you. I asked you, what is the biggest challenge you have in achieving successful sleep? So part of the survey, asked, what is your definition of successful sleep? But this question blew me away because those of you that are around Menopause Chicks a lot, you probably know that I have started to sound like a broken record lately when I'm talking about how often women leave their health appointments feeling dismissed or disappointed. And I have some personal, like some people that I love who are very close to me who have tried to talk to their doctor about sleep and have left those appointments feeling dismissed and disappointed. So I just naturally assumed that when I asked this question about what is your biggest challenge in achieving successful sleep, that it would have something to do with not being able to get the help that you need. I was completely wrong. That number was 20%. But the big number here in the middle, the 59%, drop down, see the red arrow. It's thinking that I should be able to handle sleep on my own. We have some work to do. This is the picture that I want you to have in your head of the pot, whether it's on the back burner, simmering away, something that you think, oh, I should be able to handle that on my own. Maybe I'll just have a bubble bath, or maybe I'll try some CBD or whatever you do. And don't get me wrong, those things might be supportive. But the biggest challenge in us achieving successful sleep is thinking that we should be able to handle it on our own. I'm now going to switch into talking about finding and treating the root cause, which is another mantra of mine. But my learning about insomnia has changed my mind or helped it to pivot. It's a paradigm shift, if you will. I still believe very much in this inverted pyramid approach in terms of being able to ask ourselves questions, holding up a mirror and saying, truthfully, am I really paying attention to how I eat and how I move and how I manage stress? And we'll go through that in a second. However, the statistics from what you're telling me about your challenges with sleep and sleep deprivation and insomnia has made me ask the question, what if we were all able to jump ahead, solve our insomnia or treat it with an approved option? Would that put us in a better position to then make the health decisions that we need to make, like some of those on this pyramid? I think the answer is yes. I'll let you tell me what you think when we get to the end of this. So let's walk through the pyramid. Whenever we have questions about our health, and those of you that aren't familiar with this, I'll just explain the background to why this inverted pyramid came to be. As you know, there are many, many, many questions in the Menopause Chicks community about hormone therapy. And hormone therapy is an approved, viable treatment that all of us need to get curious about the potential benefits for our current and future health. And it's at the bottom of this pyramid, not because it's the least important, but because I was trying to find a way to illustrate to Menopause Chicks members that hormone therapy is not a magic wand. It's not a fixer of all things. And I was really worried that too many of us might be jumping to hormone therapy and skipping over the opportunity to address some other root causes or the real root cause if it wasn't all related to estrogen and progesterone fluctuation and decline. Okay. So I created the list and then I put it into this inverted pyramid so that we could ask ourselves these questions anytime we have a health concern. Today, we're talking about sleep. So the first line is eat, move, and sleep. And this could also include like, what kinds of foods we're eating. Are we eating, 80% healthy? Is it an 80-20, or is it more like 50-50 in terms of how many times we're going through the drive-through versus cooking at home? All of those kinds of things that could play into the quality of our food. We also need to include alcohol here, especially when we're talking about sleep, but when we're talking about all other factors of women's health. And I will be talking about alcohol next month, or in a couple of months. We'll have a special event dedicated to that. But for women, just know that the ideal recommended guideline for alcohol is 0 drinks a week, and certainly no more than 2 alcoholic beverages per week. And exercise definitely needs to be part of this top tier of the pyramid. And then arguably this could be in the top tier as well, but what is our stress management, and really being mindful of the fact that we need to, if we're not currently practicing mindfulness and meditation, that could impact our health, and certainly could impact our quality of sleep. And then, oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I didn't want to skip this. That's why I made it another bubble. Um, Sleep hygiene is a buzz phrase that we've heard over the last few years. What does that mean exactly? Well, what's important to know is how our brain prepares for sleep. And 3 things that we need to know is that we need to be in a room that is 100% dark. No night lights, no clock radios, no TV lights or screens, 100% dark. Okay. Why? Because that's how our brain produces melatonin. Actually, melatonin production begins as soon as we wake up. Okay. So the best thing we can do when we wake up in the morning is go out into the light, go outside if you can, or get an artificial light that will let the light in through your eyes into your brain. That's how melatonin is produced. And melatonin is not something that we buy at the store, although you can buy a supplement, and I'll speak to that in a second. We need to remember that it's not external, it's internal. It's something that our brain makes on its own. Why is there melatonin at the store, you might ask? Well, shift workers, jet lag, those would be the top 2 reasons for why someone might supplement with melatonin. But don't skip to the supplement aisle without making sure that you are practicing a regular routine for how give your brain the opportunity to do what it is supposed to do and make melatonin on its own. And then, of course, no screens in the bedroom or before bedtime. If you can wind down an hour or 2 before, and just establish the routine that's going to be right for you. Um, Now, is there any magic in that? I don't know. For some of us, that could be all that's required, but we do need to keep going down the pyramid and making sure that, because we have such large percentages from the Menopause Chicks survey, that we are covering all the bases. So the next level is managing stress. Cortisol is our stress hormone. If cortisol is out of whack, it is definitely going to impact our stress. You may recall one of the charts that shows that the majority of menopause chicks are waking too early, which could mean that cortisol is spiking at the time of day that it's not supposed to, okay? Too early. So ways in which you can manage that on your own would be by practicing mindfulness and doing that by walking in nature every single day. The other area that gets a lot of airplay around whenever we're talking about sleep is nutritional support. And not surprisingly, a lot of menopause chicks do already supplement with magnesium. That had a very high percentage on the survey. Magnesium supplementation is an effective treatment for magnesium deficiency. And I'm saying that very deliberately because I do not want anyone to infer or translate when we're talking about magnesium that magnesium is a treatment for sleep. It is not. It is a supplement for magnesium deficiency, which most North American adults are magnesium deficient. So it's a good idea. Support mood, it can support joints and muscles. Magnesium is something that our body needs to function, but it is not a treatment for sleep. Again, I'm just going to underscore that because sure enough, tomorrow someone will say, I tried magnesium and I still can't sleep. Yep, okay. That's going to be common. It's not a treatment. Just incorporate magnesium into your diet, supplement if you need to, and know that it is something that your body relies upon for functioning. And then get a personalized recommendation. Maybe you are needing vitamin D, maybe you're needing something else. Make sure that you work with a registered dietitian or your healthcare provider to get a customized supplementation or even testing for a possible nutritional deficiency, like an iron deficiency. Make sure that's customized for you. Now, you might recall from previous iterations of this pyramid that I have the word thyroid in this next level, and that's because thyroid is one of the most underdiagnosed conditions for women. But really what I'm referring to when we're asking ourselves these questions on the pyramid is, are there any other health conditions that could be impacting my sleep? And I can tell you in no uncertain terms that insomnia can exacerbate, many other conditions, mental health conditions, ADHD, chronic pain, anxiety, even substance abuse and suicidal thoughts. And they're interrelated. They can influence each other, right? So there's always that Rubik's Cube. We're never usually just solving for one thing. There's usually more than one thing at play, especially when we are dealing with sleep disruption and or insomnia. However, when you're going through and asking yourself these questions, you need to say to yourself, is your fatigue and exhaustion rooted in something else like iron deficiency or like a thyroid condition or like another condition that you are already talking to your healthcare provider about. And then on the right hand side of the screen, I've included, do I meet the criteria for insomnia? And by the way, insomnia is self-diagnosed. Okay, you go through those 4 questions of, do I have difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, waking too early, or have my or experience daytime consequences the next day from poor sleep? You diagnose that yourself. You don't need somebody else. You don't need someone to come into your bedroom, or you don't need to go to your doctor and have them diagnose you. Although you might invite your doctor to confirm that diagnosis, you're going to know before you go to your next health appointment whether or not you meet the definition of insomnia. But you might also want to explore, what else is at play. Is it sleep apnea? Which is when you stop breathing or your breathing is impaired during your sleep. Or maybe it's something like urinary incontinence that means you're waking up in the middle of the night to pee that's impacting your sleep. So we need to make sure that we're asking all of these questions so that we can actually find and treat the root cause. And then at the bottom, of course, is hormone therapy. And for the majority of women in this survey who age 45 and up, they're asking questions about, is this related to a decline in progesterone or a fluctuation or decline in estrogen? And if so, what can I do about it? And if you've watched the masterclass, you know that progesterone, when it's produced when our cycles are regular, is responsible for supporting our sleep. When we take hormone therapy, I have to repeat the exact same thing I said about magnesium. Progesterone therapy is not a sleep treatment. It is a way of, it's a therapy It's a way of giving our body back a little bit of what it used to make on its own so that we can mitigate symptoms and invest in our long-term health for the next 3 to 5 decades. So again, I do hear from a lot of women in the Menopause Chicks community who'll say, I was prescribed progesterone. I took it last night and I still didn't sleep. It's because you are actually treating the decline of progesterone, and it takes a while for you to build that up. But you also have to remember that progesterone might support our mood and our sleep and regulate bleeding, but it's not an approved sleep treatment. Okay, so back to the burner. The biggest challenge for midlife women to address sleep issues is the belief that we should be able to handle it on our own. And yes, there are things on this pyramid that we can handle on our own, such as going outside when we wake up and letting the light in and helping our brain make melatonin on our own. Because in today's society, a lot of us spend too much time inside and we're not getting the daytime sunlight that we need. But there are other things on this list that require us to invite help. We are not meant to do this on our own. I think I've gone over this before, but just to switch into, finding and treating the root cause versus do I actually have insomnia? This is the definition. It is any one of these things, not all of them. So anytime you experience difficulty falling asleep 3 or more times a week, difficulty staying asleep 3 or more times a week, waking too early, or experiencing daytime consequences. And I want to talk about daytime consequences for a second and what it is costing us in terms of productivity, mood, relationships, our ability to carry out responsibilities, not just at home or at work, but maybe in the community with our volunteer roles, maybe caring for aging parents. All of those things can be impacted by daytime consequences. And many of you may have seen some of the marketing that I have done for this event and this content recently. It also puts the cars that are on the road at significant risk. If 1 in 11 cars that we meet on the highway is being driven by somebody who is living with chronic insomnia disorder, or 70% of the women who are 45 to 64 years old that we're meeting on the highway are living with chronic insomnia disorder. So it's a big risk. And it scares me actually to think about that, not just for myself, but also my kids out on the road with so many people experiencing insomnia and thinking it's something that they should be able to solve on their own, or not having the information and education that you now have to be able to ask for help and to know that there are treatments, easy, viable, accessible treatments available. 25% of Canadian adults age 18 to 64 report trouble going to sleep or staying asleep. So this is like a picture of what Canada looks like as a country. 25% of Canadian adults. You might think, oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's all right. It's not so bad. Maybe it's not me. Not a big deal. 6 to 10 meet the criteria for insomnia. That is, if they know what the criteria is for insomnia, and 10 to 15% report symptoms of daytime consequences. Okay, so I don't know, Shirley, I don't really know like why you're making such a big deal about this. Yeah, it's probably something we need to pay attention to, but whatever. And then you overlay what we learned from your responses to the Menopause Chicks sleep survey, and we realize, oh, 71% of menopause chicks meet the criteria for insomnia, and 32% report symptoms of daytime consequences. This has such a domino effect to all of the other content and speaking engagements that I've had in recent days, weeks, and months. And that is there's a lot of headlines that are talking about women in the workplace and menopause education in the workplace, and 20% of women considering leaving their jobs because of menopause. What if it's sleep? What if it's the daytime consequences of not having sleep addressed or thinking they need to solve it on their own that's actually impacting productivity, absenteeism, presenteeism, which is when we show up for work, but we can't actually get anything done because we are so fatigued, exhausted, and hung over from not having a good sleep the night before and the night before that and the night before that and so on. This is a list of consequences. I think I've mentioned maybe some or all of them already, but I want us to start thinking about sleep as not only something that happens in the 7 to 8 hours at night or the day, the consequences the day following, but we've got short-term and long-term consequences to consider. The short term are things like quality of life, productivity at work, absenteeism and presenteeism at work, income and economics. Now, this is interesting. Sleep debt or insomnia, people living with insomnia, is actually costing the Canadian economy or employers the equivalent of $5,000 per employee per year. That's everybody working. Imagine if you just had $5,000 deducted from your paycheck if you're not sleeping properly. That's what it's costing employers and the economy. It's also contributing to overwhelming statistics in injuries, accidents, and road safety or motor vehicle accidents. I was thinking about this today too. Like, there's so many people who are afraid to fly, right? But the airlines really prioritize sleep for their staff, especially their pilot staff. It's imperative that they have time between shifts, a real focus on sleep. But other industries might hold sleep deprivation up like a badge of honor. And this becomes difficulty, especially, when women are going to see their health professionals. We all have this different lived experience. Maybe you grew up in a home where you know, you had entrepreneurial parents and they were told, oh, entrepreneurs, they only need 4 hours of sleep a night. Or going through medical school, a doctor might have been congratulated if they were successful at staying awake for 24 or 36 or 48 hours in a row. So their lived experience with how sleep deprivation is interpreted could be vastly different than your lived experiences and your daytime consequences the following day from not having adequate or quality sleep. Um, Airline industry, what was I going to say about that? Oh, yeah, just the fact that, traveling by air is one of the safest things that we can do, especially when you think about, you know, the chances of being in a motor vehicle accident and the number of people who are sleep deprived. But none of us ever think about, oh, we hop in our car and we drive across town without thinking about that the majority of the drivers could be living with insomnia. And then on the other side, these are big topics, and we are already starting to dive into these topics in the Nest this year. We've already had a session with Dr. Bayless and Dr. Thurston on mental health, and menopause and sleep was included in that. But mental health for sure can be a long-term consequence of insomnia. Cardiovascular health can be impacted or impaired by chronic insomnia disorder as well, and other health conditions such as diabetes and obesity. So, what are the approved treatments for insomnia? Well, in Canada, we now have access to these approved treatments for insomnia. And when I was talking about the Menopause Chicks survey results, I did not go through all of the detail of what women had already tried. That was shared in the survey, and I can post that separately. Um, the majority of menopause chicks do have a primary care provider or a family physician. And many of the folks that met the criteria for insomnia, they had already talked to their doctor about insomnia treatment. But the outcome or the other side of that was that many of them had been prescribed sleep aids, or prescribed a medication that was intended to serve as a sleep aid. So the numbers were off the charts in terms of being prescribed an SSRI, which is an antidepressant medication, or a benzo or a Z drug, things that were never intended to be a treatment for insomnia, but drugs that would induce drowsiness. Okay. And so the side benefit might be sleep. And that would be fine if you're being treated for the medicate for the if you're being given the medication because you have another health condition that it requires that medication, and that you're doing well on it and you're getting sleep benefits. All of that is fine. But if you are seeking treatment for insomnia, it's really important that you are getting an improved treatment that was designed for insomnia. And besides that, one of the biggest resistance or resistors for women to even talk to their healthcare provider about approved treatments is fear that they will be prescribed a sleeping pill, and all of the traditional myths and misconceptions that go along with sleep aids or sleep medications or sleeping pills. So I think it's really important to, that's why I called this event Sleep is the Best Medicine 2025, so that we can understand that, yes, sleeping medications used to only be tested on men up until the 1990s. And the assumption when it came to dosing those sleep medications was that women were just little men. What we've learned now is that women do not metabolize those medications the same way that men do. And so, if it is the same drugs that were prescribed to your mother or your grandmother in decades prior, um, they might have had next day consequences that looked like a hangover from that medication. Or even worse, they might have said that they became addicted to those medications. So, line in the sand, fast forward to today, we do have access to approved treatments that have been tested on women, and they are effective for everyone at treating the part of the brain that is responsible for what they call wakefulness. Okay, so it's not designed to induce drowsiness and just make you so tired and drowsy that you will sleep. Whether you have good sleep or quality sleep or not, you're just sleeping, and you might wake up not feeling well rested, versus a treatment that is actually not going to mess with our sleep architecture. It's not going to mess with our REM sleep, our restorative sleep. It's going to focus on the part of the brain that is responsible for wakefulness and make sure that we can have a quality sleep, that we're able to wake up to an auditory alarm, not need to be like shaken out of our sleep, but can wake up in a natural, after a good solid 7 or 8 hours sleep, restorative sleep that we need. and that we deserve. So what are those approved treatments for insomnia? Well, the first is cognitive behavior therapy. Cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia, or CBTI, which is a non-pharmaceutical approach to treating insomnia, and it's non-invasive. And some of you who were here last year, you may recall that I did do an interview with the cognitive behavior therapists from SleepWorks. So if that is something that you want to pursue, you can have a conversation with your doctor. You can get a recommendation for or referral for cognitive behavior therapy. The folks at SleepWorks have adapted a program for women in midlife, or CBTI adapted for menopause. That might be something that you want to look into. It's available virtually, and it is covered by most extended health plans. So it would be great if it was covered for everyone, but the good news is that it is covered by most extended health plans. And if you're not sure about yours, it might be, something that you want to check ahead of time, or just decide that it is something that you want to invest in. But the purpose of going to see your doctor in the first place is confirm your diagnosis of insomnia, and then to invite them to work with you so that you can go through the pros and cons of what would be the best decision for you. Um, in terms of pharmaceutical treatments, I alluded to this before, just about being able to share new information, and having available pharmaceutical treatments that are focused on the part of the brain responsible for wakefulness and tested on women, and that it doesn't affect our sleep architecture. And I do get asked this question a lot, so I wanted to include it on the slide, is the class of the medication. So remember, I told you about in the survey how women, menopause chicks, reported that many of us are getting prescriptions for SSRIs, or pain medication, or even seizure medication, which gabapentin is prescribed a lot for sleep, for chronic pain, for other issues. This is a class that is only for insomnia. Laboracent or daridoracet. I don't know if I said that right. But the brand names for the DORA class are Daviego or QUVIVIQ. Now, these brand names are in the process of getting approval from all extended health plans. So it is something that your doctor can prescribe today, but it might not be something that is yet 100% covered by extended health plans. And that's simply a process, not simply, it's a complex process of it being new. And anytime there is a new drug to Canada, and all of the trials and the education with physicians and so on. So it is available, and I can tell you, my sister lost her partner in 2023, so 2 years ago, and he had had early onset dementia before that. So months, even years, my sister was primary caregiver and living with insomnia. After Harry passed away, Brenda really needed to invest and reinvest in her sleep and address her insomnia. Alongside of, as I was saying, we're always dealing with other things on the Rubik's Cube, alongside of grief and loss and loneliness. And she went to her doctor without my script tips and without me even knowing, and her doctor prescribed Daviego. She's doing really well on it, getting 7 solid hours of sleep. And I think that while she has extended health benefits, it's probably costing her about $1 a day. So no judgment on that, whether that's worth it to you, not worth it to you. It's just a fact. of where we are on this journey of introducing more and more research and more available treatments for insomnia, which of course we deserve. I'm going to move ahead very quickly, and then we'll jump into questions for the last few minutes. Many of you know that I do love to work with you on script tips for how you prepare to have this conversation. If this is you and whether or not you meet the criteria for insomnia, I invite you to have a conversation about sleep prioritization with your healthcare provider. And especially if you meet the criteria for insomnia. So in the Menopause Chicks community and in the Nest, we talk a lot about how to prepare for your appointment. This is an acronym that I have developed. It's like a method or a formula that anyone can use to fill in the blanks for how they talk to their doctor about prioritizing and treating insomnia. Why is this important? Well, because over 54% of women leave their health appointments feeling dismissed or disappointed. The majority, that number is even higher for Indigenous women and women of color. The majority of those appointments are related to menstruation or menopause. I do not know the statistic for what percentage of those appointments were related to sleep. I could infer that it was a high number, but I might also be curious to know that maybe it's a really low number, considering the majority of women feel that sleep is something that we should solve on our own. Regardless, this is how you would move forward in drafting your own script. If you want to do this with me, I am happy to do it with you on Mondays at Ask Anything. You can bring your personal health history, and you can walk away with a script that you can take to your next health appointment. Very quickly, it goes like this. You begin the appointment by stating the goal for why you were there. Not your symptoms just yet, but the goal. How do you want to walk out of that appointment? My goal today is to talk to you about an approved treatment for insomnia. As you know, I'm 58 years old and my last period was in 2016. Then you go to the SPEAK acronym. S is for symptoms. My symptoms of insomnia include waking up too early every day and not being able to go back to sleep. I also have next day consequences in that my insomnia is impacting my relationship and my ability to get my work done. This is impacting my home life, and it's also impacting my income. I very quickly there, just because I'm so used to doing this, I very quickly swung into the P, which is impact. So the symptoms are that I wake too early and I'm having next day consequences. The impact of those symptoms are the fact that my relationship is not what it should be, and my productivity at work or my income is being impacted. Many of us stop there if we get this far in our health appointments. I want you to carry on. I want you to say and show up with as much confidence as you can muster. I have been investing in my sleep education. I have learned that I deserve 7 hours of sleep at night. And I've also learned, and this is the affirmation part, the A, I have learned that I am not meant to solve this on my own. And then the K stands for, okay, now what? It's an invitation now for you to turn it over to your health partner on the other side of the desk and say, will you work with me to figure out which of the approved options are going to be best for me? This is a fill in the blank example, doing exactly the same thing as what I just walked you through. And the goal of creating these script tips is to mitigate what you see. If you can read it across the top of the screen, and I'm really exaggerating here, folks, just don't take offense to any of this, but it's to mitigate that stereotypical example of how we might be showing up for our health appointments now, which is make the appointment, forget about it. Oh, it pops up on our calendar 2 weeks later, and we're like, oh, it's a busy day at work. And we drive to the health appointment and find parking, go up the elevator, and we get there and we're like, oh, yeah, no, hi. No, I'm good. Yeah, no, my kids are good. Yeah, they're growing. Yeah, getting older. Yeah, time goes so fast. How are your kids? You're already 5 minutes into your 8 minute appointment, and you told me that you were going to prioritize your sleep and make you the name that's at the top of your to-do list. So we want to switch that. I'm not saying get rid of the niceties. If you like your doctor and you like having that type of conversation, move it to the end of the appointment after you have explained clearly, hi, I'm here to discuss my sleep, or I'm here to discuss approved treatments for insomnia. As you know, I am 57 and my last period was in 2016. My primary concerns include the impact that insomnia is having on my work. For example, in the last month, I've missed 3 days of work, and this is impacting my bank account. Recently, I've been investing in my own health education, and I've learned that there are new approved treatments for insomnia. I've also learned that sleep issues are not something I'm supposed to tackle on my own. I want to explore cognitive behavior therapy or sleep aids. I'm currently open to both because I deserve to feel amazing, and I'm inviting you to work with me to understand what would be the best solution for me. So this is your permission slip. It's okay to ask for help. Solving for sleep now will put you in a much better position to make all the other health decisions that you need to make. Thank you for listening. I think that this is an exciting opportunity for individuals like yourself, for you to share with folks that you love, because believe me, someone you love is currently living with or dealing with or challenged by sleep deprivation and or insomnia. And I think it's an incredible opportunity for us to change history, to change the trajectory of women's health if we can put sleep on the front burner. So I'm going to close this down and open up the chat so I can see if anyone has any questions. How did it stop share? Hello. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this so you can turn on your video if you want to, or you can turn on your microphone and say hello and let me know if you have any comments or questions. And if you want to just stay on chat or type in your question there, that would be absolutely fine too. Okay. I am 60 years old. My last period was at 52. I started hormone therapy with the patch on February 25th, or maybe February 2025. I have stopped the patch and I am trying to switch to the gel, which is easier for me to control the amount. My appointment is at 4:45 today, so I'll be leaving here early. I have had several negative side effects, headaches and racing heart rate, but the most positive one was that I have had no more insomnia since I started. Yay, I'm hoping this continues with the gel. Good luck. Circle back with me and let me know if you're still here, how that works out. Yes, hormone therapy, progesterone therapy, because progesterone is the hormone that's responsible for sleep, can be very supportive of our sleep. And if it's not, there are other options, which of course I hopefully you can can't use video or unmute. You should be able to. I've got it switched so that you can start video or unmute, but I'll just there you go. There you go.
Hi, Shirley.
Hi.
I still can't use the video. It still tells me you've stopped it, but I can talk. So we're halfway there.
Try it again. I just reset it. There
Oh,
you go.
there we go.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
That was me that left the comment up there, and I was actually just talking to my doctor, and
Multitasking. I love
right?
it.
Oh my God. That's because it took me for like 5 minutes to find the video setting to turn the audio off, but whatever. She had no idea what the gel estrogen looks like. So she said she was going to write a prescription. And she was, insulting the pharmacist because he didn't tell me. I
Mm,
love this woman, honest.
that's unfortunate.
Yes. So hopefully I'm going to call the pharmacist tomorrow and make sure that whatever prescription she sent is covered and will work. But do you know anything about the gel? And I apologize, this isn't specifically about insomnia or sleep, but he seemed to say it was a pump. And to
Yeah.
me, that means like a little jar with a pump. Yeah.
Looks like this. That's mine.
Estrogel.
Estrogel. It's the
Okay.
most commonly prescribed transdermal estrogen.
Okay.
You're right. It has nothing to do with sleep.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Well,
For
except that
progesterone, yes.
something in the HRT has made me sleep better. So
The progesterone, probably.
is it? Okay.
Yeah.
But the headaches were really bothering me.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
used to get headaches with birth control too, right?
Yeah,
So
anytime you're taking hormone therapy or and for everyone, any medication or treatment for that matter, anytime you're taking something and you do not feel well, you need to return to your prescriber and ask 4 questions. Am I taking the right hormones? Which I think you are. Have you been prescribed the right doses? Which should be interesting. You probably are though. And then some people are sensitive to mode of delivery. So like not everybody's body is absorbing or metabolizing every mode of delivery. So that's something to get curious about too. But if your doctor doesn't know about estrogel, I can give
she
you some.
thought they were little sachets or something, she said.
That would be Divigel. So Divigel is another brand, but it's the exact same contents and it comes in a little package. I don't have one that you tear off
Hmm.
and individually apply it. It's the same thing.
But that would be harder to control the amount. Like if I wanted to start like
No, I
really
think
small.
they're individualized doses. So this is a pump. So the prescribed amount. Whoops, I got air in mine. There. One pump is a dose,
Right?
right? And the Divigel, you would tear off the sachet and put it on.
Okay. I don't know. We'll give it a shot, see if that
Okay.
works. I
Okay.
don't know whether it's estrogen that I'm reacting to that's giving me the headaches, but I had a really hard time when I started birth control finding one that was low enough that wouldn't give me headaches. And then the plan was to leave me on all through menopause and not worry about anything else. That was the military doctor's plan. And I started getting massive headaches, 7 days a week. Nothing would touch it. It was brutal. And I lasted for a couple of months and basically,
The birth control pill is not estrogen or progesterone. It's a progestin.
oh, okay, I thought it had estrogen in it.
Well, it might have been a birth control pill. Most birth control pills don't have estrogen anymore, but it's non-bioidentical. So you're not giving your body back what your ovaries used to make. You're giving your body a progestin to prevent a pregnancy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So message me if you need script tips and
What I need is a textbook from my doctor.
okay. Well, I'm happy to just
I know. Thank you.
No, you're most welcome. I don't know if anybody has any other questions related to sleep is the best medicine, but we can have an open Q&A as well. Any questions? Any questions anytime. And if you found that helpful, I'd love to know. If you have extra like ideas for content around sleep or addressing sleep with your healthcare team, I'd like to know that as well. And if you wouldn't mind sharing this with all the people that you love, that would be great. We're good? Everyone's good? Okay. This replay will be posted in the Nest, so you are more than welcome to invite your friends to come and watch it or rewatch it in the next 30 days. Um, Having said that, have a good night, everyone, and I hope you have a good sleep tonight. Josie, awesome. Florence, thank you. Thanks, Jenny. Amazing. Thanks, Lois. Thanks, Sarah. Have a good night, everyone.